So I had this crazy idea to head back to the city I grew up in and sit down with some of my favorite creatives and friends. Individuals who have traveled a unique journey to get where they are today. Their wisdom often goes unnoticed because in some capacity, they don't even fit the cultural norms of success. But to me, they're definitely hidden treasures. So I decided to create a space where we can explore the narratives of these individuals through candid conversations. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Robin Keith, and welcome to Hidden Gems.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Hidden Gems. I'm your host, Robin Keith, and I'm so excited today. And I think I say that every time, but it's because it's my friends that we're talking with. And I get to talk to one of the most talented individuals that I know, my brother, Alan Johnson, ladies and gentlemen. Alan Johnson. You give yourself applause there, my guy?
Somebody got to.
Right. Well, guys, let me tell you a little bit about Alan. The reason why I say he's one of the most talented people, because as a photographer, there are not many people that can execute the way that he does. And he's one of the most humblest individuals that I've ever come across. And I think it's very, very important that you as a creative that's watching this, you actually hear his story, because Alan is one who loves being behind the scenes. Matter of fact, he's only doing this conversation because I've asked him. But the reality is he's one of the most hardest working people I know. And he always is honing his skill. And I think sometimes as creatives, we can flow off talent and we can flow off the ability that others say that we have, but we won't hone our skill. We'll just think because we're good, or people said we're good, that that's just enough. But Alan is always learning about his camera, always learning about lighting for his photography, always learning about his client. And I think this is going to be a great conversation you're going to learn from. So, Alan, thank you for joining us today, bro.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so do me a favor. Take people kind of through your origin story, like where you come from, how you get here, how does photography become a thing for you? Like,
So, I think my origin story starts in the church, as most creatives. I guess most creatives, but more specifically starts with my mom and dad. I was, born and raised in Maryland, came to Philly in 2011. But, it's always been there. It's one of those things that's always been there. So, like, growing up in church, my mom and dad would lead production on church plays and things like
whoa,
that. My mom was making our costumes. My dad was usually, heading music or heading like art design and things like that. So,
I didn't know that.
so it's been there, but it's not something like I was necessarily like cognizant of until.
What were you doing like around that time where your parents are like all focused on the set? What was you into at that time?
Well, as they're doing production, like we're in the plays, so
So you was acting?
yeah, a little bit of that.
What?
There was one time I was a deacon in the church. There was one time I was a bee or a zebra or something like that.
Was you the deacon counting the money, or was you the deacon turning the lights off? Because there's two different types of deacons.
So the scene was it was a testimony service. The church was called. The play was called A Funny Thing Happened on My Way to Through the Bible, something like that. I forget, but yeah, it was a church scene, and it was about the rapture, but it was a church scene, and I was just a deacon giving a testimony.
Did you have the voice? Did you have that, like the deacon voice, like I want to give honor to God, and
yeah, something like that. It was much higher because it was
I want to give honor to God.
Yeah, praise the Lord, that kind of thing, with the shout and everything. But yeah, no. So that's where it started. And like my dad was always the one who like introduced us to music and instruments in the house. So growing up, and in church, played the trumpet, played the drums. My sister played the flute and clarinet. My brother played piano and sang. So it's always been in the house. Like, crazy enough though, like I didn't even like consider my mom a creative until like her funeral when somebody said it.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like, for me, I process it as like moms just doing what moms do, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's natural for moms to just sew their kids' costumes,
Right.
Like, so it's just been there, right? And
shout out to all the moms who sew costumes and make you go to lessons.
Yeah, and it's not something that like I don't know if I would say I took it for granted, but I guess I did. But yeah, it's just always been there. So like even present day, I feel like I'm just doing what I've always done, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see it as this great or big thing, and I'm grateful for my, encouragement circle. I'm grateful for those people who um, do kind of point out that it
Yeah.
is, something bigger. And to God be the glory for that too. But yeah, to me, I'm just doing what I've always done, right?
Wow. So when did you actually decide to pick up a camera? Like when was it like, okay, I'm gonna start taking photos? Did your family like uh put a like so for me, my dad played drums. So it was in the basement. You always saw the drums. So me and my brother would sneak and go play it, even though we weren't supposed to touch it. And then we eventually got caught, and then he, started giving us a couple lessons. And next thing so like, was that similar, or like, or was it like, hey, Alec, you gonna be a photographer?
So photography for me starts with my dad as well. My dad was gadget geek.
Okay.
Always had the big, what is it, was the Super 8, had the, video cameras, had, any kind of camera, whatever, still photography cameras. But for him, it was just to document, life, everyday life, and to document his children growing up. But his picture sucked,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like I'm always taking underexposed photos. I'm always taking like, blurry photos. So, you know, I just, by extension of him, just kind of picked it up.
Mm-hmm.
And, I became the family photographer in a sense because my pictures were better. But it wasn't necessarily, honestly, it wasn't like till 2005 that I kind of like, oh, I have something here, and like really, I guess the interest kind of stuck. But prior to that, I've been shooting since the mid 90s, just.
Wow. So when did you get into like the science of photography? Because like for me, you're really like a student of the game. Like when did you get into the science, and then when did you get to a space where you were like, I'm really good at this, or I'm good enough to start charging people? Like how did all that play out for you?
I would say like I was learning before I even realized I was learning, right?
Mm.
So, growing up, you had your Word Up magazines, you had your Essence, your Vibes, your Double XLs, all those kind of things, and I'm me and my brother, like, we're taking pictures out, posting them on the wall, all that kind of stuff. Jada Pinkett, Holly Berry's, all of those, 90s
Wait, are we talking
icons.
about the wall of inspiration? Like the wall.
None of the sort, none of the sort. But no. So yeah, you had your Monica's, your TLCs, all like I said, 90s icons. But like, you post them on the wall to cover the wall, but also like I'm looking at, I like how this picture was taken, right?
Mm,
I like, and before I even like had a concept of like understanding lighting, like I'm appreciating the lighting in it, right?
mm,
So like there's a certain something here, like I like how this is lit, and that may not have been my terminology, but like I'm
mhm.
studying at the time. So when I first started, I was using like this point and shoot kind of like handheld, and I was using a desk lamp, and I'm only saying
Define for
this.
the people what a point and shoot.
I was just a handheld, just point and shoot, literal point and
Just want to
shoot.
make sure everybody got these
Yeah,
terms, sir. You dropping terms.
yeah. So it's a point and shoot handheld digital camera. It's probably like a 8 megapixel at the time, something like that. But yeah, just carrying it with me everywhere, number one. But, I used that one instance, like, best friends over the house, cousins over the house, and, turn the lights off in the room and, using the desk lamp, creating like, just 1 point shadow lighting, right?
Hmm.
So that's what it drove everybody else crazy.
Mm.
So but it wasn't anything big deal, probably trash today. But yeah, I think just something like that is kind of like, oh yeah, again, something's there. So
Like when you going through a photo shoot, like what's your ultimate goal?
I think it depends on which aspect of photography. So if it is something I am there, like an event, I think I approach that with the mindset of like photojournalism, right? Just
Hmm.
capturing the moment. Um, but also there is a story there, right? So, for whoever is viewing the images, like they should be able to feel the emotion of the day. Say if it
Hmm.
was a wedding, they should be able to feel the emotion, get a sense of like, the atmosphere. Um, feel how the groom may have felt getting
Hmm.
dressed, or the excitement, anticipation that the groom felt, and the bride as well. Um, seeing how the parents responded to it. Just
Hmm.
things like just placing your viewership inside of the event,
Hmm.
though they were not there physically. With portraits, I think my approach is always just kind of like show. the subject themselves as they never like seen themselves before. I think the greatest thing for me is when I hear somebody come into a portrait session saying, "Oh, you're gonna have a hard time with me. I take horrible pictures," and then and at least when we're done, it's like, "Oh, you might be good. You made me look like something." Like that's rewarding for me, right? Because I think everybody is a star in their own right, so it's just kind of like presenting that to them, right? So
Everyone's a star in their own right. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, where does that come from?
I don't put much stock into celebrity.
Mm.
So for me, everybody is somebody. So I mean, and it's that simple. I think everybody is somebody, and yeah. So it's just treating everybody with that same dignity, and again, showing them and presenting to themselves and presenting to them themselves in a way they haven't seen themselves. So
I mean, that's dope. I mean, I've come out of photo shoots with you feeling like a star. So
you are a
I
star.
genuinely, hey,
You are a star.
come on, give me that. What I will say is, I think it's important for many creatives to talk a little bit about. In my intro, I talked a little bit about honing your skill, right? Why are you so deeply researched about your camera? Because you got more cameras than most of us, right? And you're always like, well, this one does this one. Like, why are you so intentional about it? Because some people just pick up a camera, grab a 70 to 200 lens, like, you know what I'm saying, and they'll just lock in and say, yo, I got some shots. But like, you got multiple lenses, you got multiple types of cameras, like, you know what this does. Why are you such a scientist when it comes to that?
I think the thing for anybody to keep in mind is like the camera is a tool. So, tools are for specific things, right? So that explains why I have so many different things. I have a small point and shoot, and that's just for traveling. I don't want to feel like I'm working when I'm on, vacation. And then I do have my work camera that's for studio. And I have something that kind of toggles in between, then I have a film camera. Of course, everything else is digital. So, but I love cameras as well. So
I've always called you a leader. Um, but I think your leadership style is different. Some other people's leadership style is very boisterous. They give a lot of directives. Your leadership style, though, is very much based on your competency and um, your ability. Like, a lot of people look up to you as a photographer. Like, somebody said to me recently, Alan's such a superstar. Like, I see him as a superstar. Like, he's that, and I'm like, but Alan wouldn't receive. Like, Alan be like, no, I'm not. Like, you know what I'm saying? But you just told me everybody's a star, so I'm confused. But either way,
but I'm no different than anybody else. So again, we're all the same. So
what do you mean by that? Because I don't. I agree. We all have limbs. I believe we all have blood rolling through our veins. I believe that we all have hands and toes. I believe all of us have eyes. I think we're all born with these things that are the same. But there's something that pushes your drive, that puts you in a space that many of us would see as other. So I'm wanting you to kind of dive into that a little bit, because Alan, you're not no regular. You're
but
not
I think everybody has their thing though.
right.
So I believe we've been created by a creator to create, right?
Mm.
And we've all been given a thing. So, there's the long standing parable, you could teach a man to fish, that kind of thing, right? So if we extend that analogy, like I feel like God has given us a tackle box, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we all have our tackle box with our thing in it.
Mm-hmm.
So whether we utilize those things in those tackle boxes, I think God has given us that to be able to provide and make a living off of, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not you tap into it, whether or not like you utilize what he's given us to do your thing, like, you know, that's on you. But I feel like I've just been gifted in this area of photography and creativity to do something with it. Like, so I don't want to sit on what God has given me. And that, I mean, and that kind of opens up something else is this has always been with me, right?
Mm.
And even while I'm working a 9 to 5, whatever 9 to 5 it was, and I've had a number of jobs, like this has always been with me. This is always something I did after hours. This is always something I've done, stayed up, to do and all that kind of thing. And it's it's a love and a passion that hasn't died, right? So I'm dying in a 9 to 5 job, and it's just like I can't wait to get out and create. And I think most creatives are like that. Like I don't think 9 to 5s work necessarily for any creative because they're always antsy, right? They're always itching to get out and create. So
But okay, so let's deal with that, right? Because I remember a season like you're in this 9 to 5, you're doing a lot of photography work on it. Like sometimes you're not getting the sleep that you need, but you make this jump to go from this 9 to 5 in this medical facility that you're working in, right? It was a medical facility. You go from that 9 to 5 to now doing the creative stuff that you're passionate about. But you got to be afraid about money. And then also, I mean, I've had your wife on this podcast. Like, also, your wife's a creative too, right? And you're a husband. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, provision has to be a scenario, right?
So one, we took turns. We switched off kind of trying our hand at stepping out on our creative gifts.
Mm.
So while she was at Apple, I might have been trying to do this full time. While I was in a medical facility, I saw that she was more productive outside of the workspace, right? And she got a lot done, like plays, books, all that kind of stuff, podcasts, all of that. So
Yeah.
my heart's desire was that if you can produce all of this, on your freely, like I don't know if it's best that you go back to work, right?
Yeah.
Ideal, but it didn't work. But I think like where we both have an understanding is just like stuff is seasonal, right? So it's like she might have had to go back into the working field because financially it wasn't feasible for it to all be on me.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just took turns, but kept working in the background, and I think that's kind of like the main thing. Just like we never stopped working. So yeah, it's worked out that we've been able to work ourselves out of 9 to 5 jobs
Yeah.
or traditional 9 to 5 jobs. But like, and that's the advice that I always tell other people who do look up to me or kind of come to me for advice. Is kind of like work both until you're able to work yourself out of the 9 to 5. So
No,
that's how it's worked out.
No,
for
that's
us.
good. And I would say like I haven't heard many husbands talk like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I think there's always a traditional mentality when it comes to, you know, me and my wife believe in traditional roles. Like, don't get it twisted. But for you to go like, yo, you're equally creative, like you're equally got some stuff going on. There's some seasons. I want to take on this responsibility, even though like we're like, and everybody can sit where they want to sit with scripture. But when I read the Bible, I see the roles of provision, like through as a husband, right? And that provision is not just financial, but it's other ways of provision, being there present in what their endeavors are and things like that. So I think, but to hear you actually say that is really dope because I don't know a lot of dudes that have made space for their wife's freedom creatively and willing to take a back seat to what they're passionate about so that she can win. And so kudos to you for that. Like, because
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
but I think the mindset behind that though is, again, we've been created by a creator to be creative, right?
Yeah.
And they're just like I'm saying, like it's always been with me. There
Mhm.
are things that God places within us at birth,
Yeah.
prior to birth. Like
Yeah.
before you were formed, I knew you, right? So it's
Yeah.
just like who you are coming into this world is you already have all of it in you, right? So who am I to tamper, what God has put inside my wife, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not lording over her in any
Yeah.
way in that regard, right? So it's just like I'm not I don't want to be responsible for like,
I do not want to stand before God.
yeah,
in
for
that.
like I said, squandering or tampering with whatever he's placed inside of her, right? But also I think in a practical sense, just being a creative, I know what it is to have to create, have to get it out, right? So um I think it's worked for us that we've supported each other along the way. We've encouraged each other along the way. And we've just understood, where we are in certain spaces. So
And I love y'all relationship. Me and my wife, we spend a lot of time with y'all talking, dreaming about life and pushing each other to do certain stuff. And so I really appreciate that. I'm going to transition this part though into another space, which is like some more encouragement for creatives. But I think in general, one of the things I want to actually address is the statement, don't sleep on yourself. Because I believe, so it's funny, like your process, like you went from, like, people don't know that you not only did photography, but you did video for a little bit, right? And you were
Did
like,
I?
yeah, you made a whole music video.
Did I? Okay.
You don't remember that?
Yeah, we try things.
Did you make a video for somebody or not?
Some might say.
Some would say. I need a yes or no, Alan.
Sure.
I need a
Sure.
yes or no,
Yes.
bro. Thank you. Like, yeah, so you made a music video, and you was like, video's not for you, right? But then you was like, photography is your thing. That's where you like to stick. But now you're into a space where you're involved in social media, right? And and you're helping create content at different seasons, have spurred on strategy for people. At different seasons, have given creative direction. Like, your photography has led you into a place where you have getting these subtle, like, accolades, or these subtle things to your resume.
The grace of God
Okay,
allow me to do cool things. That's
amen,
it.
amen. But is there a possibility that a lot of creatives can have all these experiences? Are there? I'll say it like this: as you as a creative, do you feel like you sleep on yourself in reference to the impact that you made?
I don't know that I think about it.
Like, when you pull up your resume, right, and you look at the things that you've done, do you ever say, "Oh snap, I'm more than a photographer. I'm more than this. I'm more than that"? Or
No, but I think I'm getting there, right? So,
yeah,
I just
yeah,
turned 42
let's go.
and okay. Okay. I just turned
Talk heavy.
42 and like I'm looking back, right? One, I'm looking back and like I said, it's always been with me, but and then you also see the grace of God. You also see how each step in your process kind of leads you up into this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't I don't know, like cause at most, like I look back and I'm kind of like, what I'm doing now is far above what I ever thought I would, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm grateful for it, but I don't think much of myself about it. I
Mm-hmm.
just like God has provided like amazing opportunities, right?
Yeah, no, I love the
I
humbleness.
think the important thing about it though is being prepared when those opportunities arise, right?
Yeah.
So I do know that I have worked for it. So it's not like, for example, I always tell my wife, and she doesn't like me to say it, but I always tell my wife that, a lot of the opportunities that not only myself, but others have had is because she went through the door first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't like me to say that, but in the same token, like had I not been prepared, and had she not pulled myself and others along who were prepared, like we wouldn't have been able to sustain or remain in those spaces. So yeah, I am aware that I've done the work. I am aware that I'm all right, but I'm still trying to grow in my craft, right?
So what are you shooting at now? Because now you've done a bunch of different shoots. You've done a different, like, you've gotten to shoot some amazing people, from Tabitha Brown to Earth, Wind and Fire to Boys to Men to Tony Braxton to Robin Keith Williams to
Name it. Name 'em.
like, you've been in so many different settings. Um, how do you feel about them, man? Like how do you feel about those?
Like I said, it's been a blessing. It's been an encouragement. Because I think prior to those opportunities, like,
Because you shot the mess out of Earth, Wind and Fire on that shoot. I just want you to know that.
oh, thank you, sir. I think prior to that, like, you wonder what if, or you wonder if you could, right? So, um, you would see for me, I'll just say for me, like, for me to shoot alongside a Getty photographer, and do better than a Getty photographer, that was like all the encouragement I needed, right?
Wait, let's just say this. I'm going to do it for you because you said it, ladies and gentlemen. So he's at this photo shoot. We're in LA, DTLA, right? Having an amazing time. He's shooting this shoot, and he's not a Getty shooter. Now, for many people know that Getty is a program where I don't have all the details, but you have to be pretty much like union in this group, and they get called for all this stuff. Alan gets there with his camera, and the texture on his light, the texture on his camera, like the colors that he's pulling out of these shots, the framing, and the people that are standing next to him are like long-term Getty shooters. Like, this is the elite squad, and Alan is showing these people up in the most tightest spaces, in the most amazing space. I mean, in the most smallest areas where you can grab a shot. His angles are killing them, and they start getting jealous. That's what we're talking about here, okay?
I don't know about jealous, but no, but just the ability to know that, like, I can do it, like, you know, again, was encouraging, because prior to that, like, it's a wondering what if, you know. I think for me, and I think that stems from, like, my wife, we weren't professionally trained. Like, we're both self-taught. For the life of me, I couldn't get in a photography class when I was at Howard. Like, I tried.
You went to Howard?
I did, and not only went, I graduated. But
let me find out.
Yeah, so, like, but, you know, freshman, sophomore, and junior year, couldn't get in. Finally got in senior class, but the instructor told me, if you hadn't been taking it, you know, for the previous 3 years, like, he didn't think I would do good in it. So I had to drop it. So, and, you know,
look at me now. Look at me now. Hey, I'm getting paper.
Okay. Yeah. So, but yeah, so it I think, you know, that kind of informed, you know, I wouldn't say I second guessed myself, but I think that kind of informed whether or not I was up to standard, you know, in the industry, you know. So, you know, just to know that I could keep up, like I said, was all the encouragement that I needed. So,
what would be some recommendations, man, or encouragements that you would give, or some gems you would give to individuals who are similar to you, like came up in the church, self-taught, had these different experiences? Like, what encouragement you would give them? What gems, what keys would you give them?
Figure out what your thing is.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think most people kind of want to do what they see others doing, or what the trendy thing is to do, you know. So, you know, I remember coming up, everybody wanted to be a photographer or a model. You know, it's kind of like the hood thing to do, right? You know, that's the first kind of like creative step. It's just like, oh, I'm a model now, right? So, you know, now it's podcasting. You know, now it's
You just
no
go
offense,
disrespect me
no
like
offense.
that. You just go straight disrespect
No
me
offense.
like that.
But no, but somebody who's not known to be a speaker, somebody who's not known to be a, you know, a natural communicator, like in front of a camera, it won't work as a podcaster, right?
Yeah.
So you're doing great.
Thank you, bro.
But yeah, so it's that, like, just figuring out what your thing is, and what God has given you, God has placed inside of you, and then, you know, pursuing that. That's number one. Number two is remain curious. I think the role of a creative is to kind of remain curious. Otherwise you become stagnant and complacent. Like you said earlier, you know, just not resting on good, but, you know, trying to be better and great.
Yeah.
And then three, I say, just like remain teachable. Yeah. So I don't think you can rest your hat on, you know, what you've done in the past. Like, continue to make yourself valuable. Yeah, just grow in your craft.
I kind of want to talk about your work ethic and how God has really fueled that. Like how does your faith impact your work ethic? Because you're in mainstream environments, right? You know what I'm saying? They say when I look in the system, ain't no telling. Like, you know, you know what I'm saying? But just the environment that you're in would not be quote unquote Christian. Talk to me about that.
So scripturally, like, whatever you do, like, do as unto the Lord, right? Not unto man. That's simple, right? So it's, for me, it's again, God has given me this gift. And if I believe that God has given me this gift, like, what am I doing with it? You know, and am I not only doing the best I can, but am I trying to bring glory to him through what I'm doing?
Yeah.
You know, so that is treating people with dignity, that is respecting the craft, that is respecting, the soft skills of being on time, being professional, all of those things, right? And in these spaces, I can lean on something like, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who's in heaven, right? So it's just like, it's all there. I grew up in the church, so like it's definitely like, all in there. And I think just developing a theology about work, kind of informs, what I do and how I do it. Like, but also just, you realize it's all smoke and mirrors, right? So just keeping things in their proper perspective, like, helps me. Like, and again, I came into it, with a aversion to celebrity, understanding that it's fake, right? They're people just like all of us, right? So, and I have no aversion to the people or individuals themselves. I just, the institution of celebrity is kind of just weird to me. Like, and we can't be a witness if we're not in it, right? So we have to be amongst it to kind of, shed that light. So,
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a great episode for me. Again, all these episodes are great for me because I get to sit and talk with my friends. And you got to meet one of my favorite people, Alan Johnson. His social media will pop up. You get to follow him and him and his wife's online magazine. That's what I call it. You'll get to check out. But guys, I hope that you're following these people that I'm sharing with you, because
follow me.
yes, please follow him, because I think in general, when you need inspiration, when you need reminders that there are believers out here doing it creatively and making impact, it gives you fuel to understand that you'll be able to do the same. Main thing, as we heard Alan's story, is just about being consistent. And that's what he's been. So, guys, I'm thank you for you tuning in today. Again, hop in the comments, chop it up with us. Tell us what you love, what you didn't love. I'll take feedback. And any more questions that you would love to have, please send them to me so we can make Alan talk some more. But ladies and gentlemen, this has been a great episode. Looking forward to the next one.
I did have one other point. It's short and simple. It's to share. It's just like share what you have, right? So I think myself and my wife have been blessed in the ways and opportunities that we have because we've shared everything along the way. And for myself, like, I share the information that I have. I take time to like help people learn their craft in photography because it wasn't done for me. So I had people who, I reached out to, and they wanted me to pay them, or they wanted me to, take their course. And it's just like, I just asked you a simple question, right? So I never wanted to be that person. So yeah, I just believe that, like as the old church said, you can't be God given. So it's
Come on, sir.
Yeah. So, I've been given freely, so I give freely, right? And I just think I've been blessed for it, so it's, sowing and reaping.
Listen, that's a gem that we want. You know what I'm saying? Keep on sharing, keep on giving. You can't beat God given. Y'all have a great day on purpose. Peace.